We've just seen the collapse of FTX, the highest profile, and certainly one of the biggest cryptocurrency platforms. What do you think that tells us about the state of cryptocurrency?
So I think what it tells you is there's a lot of activity that's developed over the last 10 years on the trading and sale of crypto assets, assets without any intrinsic value, so they're incredibly volatile. And all of that has grown up outside of regulation. And what we saw, I think, in FTX, and there are investigations going on, and I've got no knowledge of what's actually happening inside that, but what we seem to have seen is that a number of activities which in the regulated financial sector would have had certain protections and regulations around them happened in an unregulated sector, and then we saw things like clients' money appears to have gone missing, conflicts of interest appear to have happened between different operations, transparency, audit and accounting, all of the perhaps boring things that happen in the normal financial sector didn't really happen for that set of activities. And as a result, I think a lot of people have lost a lot of money.
You're considering regulation of this sector at the moment. Is there regulation you foresee that would have protected?
I should say investing in crypto assets like Bitcoin and the like is a very speculative activity. Their value can go up, but it can go down. And over the last year, we've seen that value go down very quickly. So I think if people invest in that sort of thing, they need to know what they're doing. They need to know what it is they're actually buying. This is not a safe investment that you might put your money in for a length of time. It's in effect, in my view, a gamble, but we allow people to bet. If you then want to get involved in that, you should have the ability to do that in a place that is regulated in the same way that if you gamble in a casino, they're regulated. You should have the full information on the tin as to what you're doing. There will always be people who will want to operate perhaps on overseas exchanges or exchanges on the internet that are not in regulation. But I think for the majority of people, if they do want to be involved in speculation in this area, it's not something I would do, but if they do want to do that, then for consumer protection, market integrity, they should have a place to do that where they get the protection that they would get in a similar activity in the UK. And I think that is important.
There's an argument, isn't there, that if you compared it to gambling, was a question I was going to ask you, is it more akin to gambling than investing? But there is an argument that given it's highly speculative, there's no intrinsic value, it's actually got no place in the financially regulated system and it should be left outside. Do you not, that's clearly not a view you share?
So we allow people to buy very speculative things in the financial system. I mean, some assets are completely safe, but some assets, their value can go up and down, and some are linked to clear intrinsic value. Others are more speculative. This is really at the extreme end because, as you say, there is nothing backing this up. All it is worth, it's a piece of computer code that you own that can't be replicated and that's worth what the next person will pay you. So this is really at the extreme end of that. The reason why I think the idea that why don't we just leave this outside and it can, people can lose money and make money, but if it burns, it burns. I think as some people have put it, there's three reasons for that. One, the reason I just gave, which is there are people who want to engage in that activity, provided they do that with their eyes wide open in a place that is safe, it is not full of money laundering or illicit finance, and it's not loaded against them, then we should provide them at least with the opportunity to do that. Two, this crypto trading of crypto assets was not big enough to destabilize the financial system, but it was starting to develop links with the financial system. I don't know how that will develop, but we had banks and investment funds and others who wanted to invest in it. And I think we should think about regulation before it becomes integrated with the financial system and before we could have a potential systemic problem. And the last reason to maybe to regulate it is that there are technologies here which could, and I stress could, be of real use in the normal financial system, more efficient ways of doing things, potentially more resilient ways of doing things. That hasn't been proven in the crypto world, but if we can provide a regulatory space where people can see if they can develop products using this, we might be able to get the benefit of some of those technologies.
If I could just take those briefly perhaps in turn. On the first part, providing a safe space, is there regulation that you can foresee that would provide protection in a UK regulator for a UK crypto trading exchange?
So the Treasury has said they're going to consult next year on what regulations should be in place to govern things like the offer, the promotion, the what you say about the product that you're offering. Around there is already some regulation to cover money laundering and some of the illicit finance activities, but also can the exchanges be regulated so that you get the protection you would normally get on an exchange? Can we deal with protection of client funds, market integrity? There'll be a consultation on that, and these things could be brought within the regulatory perimeter if they meet those regulations to give people the protection, as I say, that they would get in an equivalent activity.
Given the volatility, we saw what happened in 2008 with derivatives that not enough people understood. Is there a danger in bringing it into the main? If you regulate, people will be more likely to invest, and there's a risk of infecting the system again with something that people don't understand and has the power to really undermine financial stability.
Well, I think it depends on two things. One, it depends on what the it is. So we talk about crypto and most people think of Bitcoin, but that's just one use for some of these technologies around encryption, tokenization, smart algorithmic contracts. So there could be uses that we want to bring in actually to the financial system where we could see benefits from that side. But the second point, I think, is we would need to regulate to ensure that we get the same level of protection, the same level of resilience as we would have normally. Now, before the crypto winter of last year and the FTX implosion this year, I think a number of established financial players, investment funds, banks, were thinking of getting involved, offering services, custody, market making, and the like. And we need to make sure that if that is to happen, then the standards are correct. So I don't think it will be possible to say this can be just kept outside of the financial system. It's too dangerous. I think it is difficult but possible to say let us bring it in where and when we think we can manage the risk to the standards we're used to.
And make it safe. And the third point there is the potential of this technology. Just give us a snapshot of what people have promised the earth with blockchain, but what do you see as the potential?
Okay, so make clear this is not just about blockchain and it's not just about distributed ledger. There's, as you often see with technological change, it's a number of different technologies coming together. I could give you a very real world example for those people who've bought a house. When you buy a house, you have to transfer the funds from your bank to your solicitor. The solicitor keeps the funds, the solicitor on the other side gets the title, and when the conditions of the contract are ready, the two solicitors agree and exchange the title to the house for the money. And you need those two trusted intermediaries to do that because those two things have to happen simultaneously. If you can find a way to make a digital tokenized, as it said, representation of the title of the house and a tokenized representation of the money, and you can create a contract that can't be interfered with that says when certain conditions are met, those two things will happen automatically, then we take out, if you like, a whole area of delay, activity, cost in the chain. And you could think about that for share trading. You could think about that for trading of bonds. These so-called smart contracts in which the thing being sold and the money which is buying it, or the swap of two different things, is automated in a way that it can't be interfered with and can happen instantaneously, could take out a lot of delay, a lot of cost, potentially, and I stress potentially because these things have not been tried at scale within a regulated framework, potentially could take out some of the risks in the system.
The government says it wants to be a hub for this kind of stuff. It wants to attract this kind of investment. Is it do we need the regulation for that to be a safe ambition?
I think you need the regulation for two reasons. One, for it to be a safe ambition. I think the government very much agrees with that. There's a bill going through Parliament now that will give the Bank of England powers to regulate stable coins when they're used to make payments. and we're developing the regulatory regime there. But I think it's another thing as well that actually innovators, people who are developing new systems, want to know what is the regulatory framework I need to work within. How do I design my technology, my product, the thing I'm trying to offer to people in such a way that it will meet regulation. So, I think if we're going to get sustainable innovation, things that are really useful and that can last, the developers have to know what the regulatory framework is so they can develop within it.
So going to people who, what's just happened with FTX may have confirmed prejudice or views they already hold about crypto. They might say the UK is crazy to be going near this stuff. This is the Wild West. You know, the Bank of England's been here for 300 odd years. It shouldn't be our business.
So we have to be very clear what we're talking about. If we're talking about using these crypto technologies to create basically crypto assets that have nothing behind them, that are very volatile, change in value, I don't think there's ever going to be a sustainable sort of financial activity around that. There are some people who want to invest or gamble on them, and as I said before, people should be allowed to do that. But I don't think there's a sustainable financial system built around things that can lose half their value in a day or increase half their value. If we're talking about creating the regulation in which people can see whether they can develop services that have benefit using those technologies to the real economy, and the services have benefit because of the technology and the business model, not because they're outside regulation and it's easier for them to operate, then I think there is a real benefit for the UK in terms of the technology and just the services we get as households and firms.
You're also thinking here about central bank digital currency. Why does the Bank of England need a digital currency?
So we issue money to the public. You're probably carrying some in your wallet in the form of cash, banknotes, and the like. We don't issue currency that can be used on the internet for internet shopping, or many of the places around the Bank of England here no longer accept cash. So cash, physical cash, will always be made available by the bank as long as people want it, and many people depend on it, but it's not fully usable in the way we live now. So the question for the Bank of England is that as the way we change, as society changes, as we live our lives more digitally, as they say, should we continue to provide money to the public, which is usable across a range of transactions? Why should the central bank provide money to the public? Well, by providing cash, we ensure that all the other forms of money that exist, and most people don't realize when they use their bank account, they're not actually using Bank of England money, they're using their deposit at Barclays, which is I mentioned one bank, it's their claim on an individual bank. The fact that everybody has the ability to ask for Bank of England money on demand every time you go to an ATM ties that whole system together. It means that all of the money that circulates in the economy has the same value and the same robustness. And if now we're going to get new players using new technologies and the world is going to become more digital, I think it may be important for the bank to issue its own digital currency to tie all the other currencies, all the other types of money in the UK together.
And to be clear, the bank would still stand behind that. There'd be the equivalent, there'd be a digital signature.
There would be a digital equivalent of the I promise to pay the bearer, which in the end underpins confidence in money in the UK. So whenever you want, you can turn the money you hold in a bank into basically Bank of England money backed by the state with that promise, I promise to pay the bearer. And we want to ensure that as physical cash becomes less usable in many parts of the economy, perhaps we need to offer something digitally to provide that underpinning.
And is there a world in which that digital currency replaces cash?
We'll see how society develops. I think physical cash will be around for a long time. Many people prefer to use it. Not everybody, as you know. Some of us adopt technology very early, some of us adopt technology kind of very late.
Do you think cash will see us out?
So cash will certainly see me out. If for many of the transactions that you want to make, you can't use cash, and that's becoming increasingly true. We saw it during the pandemic when a number of us, or all of us, switched to internet commerce and the like. The question is, should we provide alongside cash a digital Bank of England banknote, if I could put it that way, that can be used electronically and that can be built into some of those new services that might be developed with the new technologies.
We know that crypto arose in the wake of the financial crisis, and its real advocates have said it was a direct response to remove the middle, remove institutions like this, digitise trust. Do you think about whether there's a possibility that the rise of this highly speculative asset is actually a product of the cheap money era that followed, and perhaps its shrinking now might be a consequence of the end of that?
So I think the motivation of the original developers was, as you say, a number of motivations. Some was to avoid the state and to avoid government. Some was to provide cross-border means of payment. It actually isn't the Bitcoins aren't used in payment very much, because to be useful for payment, money has to keep its value. If between the time it leaves me and the time it gets to you, it loses half its value, it's not going to be very useful in a transaction. And certainly it's become a much more speculative asset. And when we went through COVID and in some of the crises that we've had since Russian invasion of Ukraine, we haven't seen Bitcoin and these cryptocurrencies go up in value. Some people say they're the new gold, they are the safest thing. They've gone the other way. They've been the most volatile thing. They've lost the most value in that sense. So do they have a future as a safer form of money than that produced by kind of central banks and the financial system? No, I don't think so. The opposite.
I appreciate you watching my video. I want to add my little 2 cents and my own little opinion on the video. And Deputy Governor of the Financial Stability asked a question about, is cash going to be around, and him basically talking about basically not answering the question, because he knows soon they're going to get rid of cash. Do you understand? He's talking about he sees it for a long time, but really and truly they're going to get rid of cash because they're trying to implement the CBDC. They'll solve the digital pound, especially for England. But he's talked about he made a couple of good points and he elaborated very well, but there's a couple of things what concern me. One of them was, he was talking about crypto. Obviously right now it's in a downtrend, it's down, but there's going to be certain cryptos that's going to last, the ones with utility. So 100% I agree with him. There's certain ones cryptos were speculative, but the ones like the ISO 2022 cryptos, like XRP, XLM, XDC, Algorand, Quant, even HBAR. Obviously, then I don't think the ISO, but even those kind of cryptos will stand the test of time. But he's made a lot of great points, man. But a lot of people don't understand what's really going on, man. It's the greatest wealth transfer in human history, and a lot of people are fearful and they're not educated on the technologies and what's really going on at hand. So it's upsetting to a certain extent, but at the same time, it is what it is. You just have to put yourself in a position to better yourself and your family. So man, it's mad. But anyway, as I said before, I just want to put my little 2 pence in. It's your boy Crypto Trapper, and let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know what you think about it. Am I wrong? Am I right? Is he wrong? What do you think about it? And what's your thoughts on the CBDCs as well?